Okay, well, why don't we get started? Welcome, everybody. This is a chance for those that are involved with the TA grants to hear about some opportunities that we thought would get your attention. Leslie?
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy Peters. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the National Association of Conservation Districts, and really glad to see good participation on our webinar today. In addition to serving as the Chief Executive Officer for NACD, I also serve as the Vice Chair for Field to Market. And having worked with both organizations for quite some time now, NACD has been a member of Field to Market since its inception in, I believe it was 2007 or 2008, when it was the Keystone Initiative. We've seen a lot of evolution over the years in terms of opportunities and how conservation districts can play a role in terms of working with supply chain partners in the private sector to achieve outcomes, to drive sustainable solutions, and to be part of the continuous improvement model that Field to Market is part of. We wanted to bring to you today, specifically as participants in NACD's Technical Assistance Grant Program, some discussion about how we can collaborate and look at opportunities at the local level, recognizing that within our conservation district membership, one of the things that we offer is the ability to help drive conservation practice adoption all across the country. And while there have been a lot of great accomplishments within Field to Market and the work that's been done to date, a lot of opportunities for the future in terms of how we can offer scale and how we can offer even larger impact to improve water quality, to improve soil health, and the many other resource concerns that conservation districts are addressing locally every single day. So we've got a great lineup of speakers today from within Field to Market, from within the conservation district community, and it's my pleasure just to be part of the webinar today to welcome everybody, and I look forward to the discussion. So Meg, I'll turn things back over to you, to Lexi and to Leslie, and again, welcome everybody.
Thank you, Jeremy. So our agenda today is pretty straightforward. If we can flip to housekeeping, the main thing I wanted to make sure that you are aware as our audience is that for any kind of discussion, which is where we'll end today, use the chat box. My colleague Sunny, the region rep from the Northern Plains, is going to be monitoring the chat box and feeding the questions when we get to discussion. So as things are being mentioned, you can just type your question right into the chat box. She's also shared her cell phone number, so if it's easier for you to just send her a text at her cell phone, send it. In either case, identify which one of us you'd like to have answer the question if you have a preference. Both of the speakers that are joining Sunny and I today have particular areas of focus, and so you may find that you want to question one of them and not just ask a general question to the group. I will remind you that we are being recorded. Once we get done, I will work with our communication people to get this hosted on YouTube so you can come back to this and refer to it, or refer any of your colleagues to it if they are interested. I also wanted to remind you that if you're having trouble with your feed, you are muted, but if you turn off your camera, it may improve your bandwidth and be able to pick up any details if it starts breaking up on you. With that, I am going to hand it off to Lexi Clark. Lexi is Field to Market's program manager or director, excuse me. I saw manager somewhere else. I am sorry, Lexi. And so she's going to spend a few minutes and make sure everybody understands what Field to Market is if you haven't seen anything about it previously. Thank you, Lexi.
Thanks, Meg. That director role came actually at last year's annual meeting with NACD. I was officially promoted, so I'll always have that nice memory. So thank you, Meg. Really excited to see everyone today. I always like getting in front of this audience because I feel like I'm back at home. I started my career with NRCS as a soil conservationist, and all the way from Earth Team volunteer to supporting the state office there in Virginia. So I always love being able to jump back in front of an audience of my peers. You'll normally see me speaking with conservation district representatives, both here at NACD annual meetings as well, but also with the Soil and Water Conservation Society. So always excited to be able to chat with y'all. I want to introduce Field to Market to you so that you can understand where we're coming from and then understand the opportunities here for conservation districts to really blend into our projects. Field to Market is made up of 5 different sectors. The civil society sector, of course, is where the NACD fits into this. And under that umbrella of NACD, all conservation districts then have a seat at the table as well. Being able to work across the full ag supply chain from agribusiness, the ag inputs and the aggregators, all the way down to the merchandisers and processors, we're able to see that pull through of information as farmers are using different tools, they're understanding their metrics, we're able to connect to that team of technical advisors, whether those are the CCAs or the conservation districts that are out there. Maybe they're the aggregators, as I mentioned, that are getting that grain in and they're starting to push for, or their supply chain is asking them, their customers want to know how sustainable are the products that are going to be on the shelf, whether that's at Target or Walmart, for example, across our membership and the brands and retailers. And you'll notice we have a lot of those big name brands and retailers here within our membership of and making up over 150 members of Field to Market. We are all united around a single definition and a single focus. We are science-based, we are outcomes-focused, very much like NACD, but we are also technology neutral. So very similar in that we know that there's a space for everything. We're not an organic only or certified non-GMO, or we're very open and agnostic to what types of technologies are there. We want to see the best conservation to get out on the ground. Another group within our sectors is our affiliate sector. So you'll see NRCS is a partner here, as well as a lot of the land grant universities, Soil Health Institute, several organizations that are advancing the science. Our goal is to always help and lead that science around our sustainability metrics. Our suite of sustainability metrics include biodiversity, energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, irrigation, water use efficiency, land use efficiency, soil carbon, soil conservation, and water quality. And the biggest thing for me to point out here is that a lot of this already aligns with the conservation planning that you're doing out there in the field. Our soil carbon and soil conservation and water quality metrics all align with NRCS. So if you pull in your Russell 2 and your WEPS data, you will be able to see that, hey, our soil conservation metric is based on the same science and technology. Our soil conservation has been changed a little bit based on our movement from Russell 2 to the Water Erosion Prediction Program, but that was in step with NRCS. That transition has changed a bit now, but we are still staying with them on the technology implementation, and our water quality is now moving over to match their newer water quality metrics as well. Field to Market is used across the top commodity crops growing throughout the U.S. So we're not, the field print platform and our tools aren't used across the grazing and ranching systems across the U.S., but they are used across those commodity crop programs. We do have relationships with the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, et cetera, on those livestock programs. However, we focus in on the feed stream versus jumping in there on that grazing. So we let the experts be the experts on that grazing field. However, we work with across the nation, corn growers, also cotton, potatoes, rice, soy, and wheat. And over the past year or 2 years, we've introduced the addition of alfalfa, barley, and corn silage specifically to meet that livestock feed need across our membership, as well as peanuts, sorghum, and sugar beet. I mentioned earlier we have a FieldPrint platform. The FieldPrint platform is a free, available tool that empowers brands, retailers, suppliers, and farmers to document how they're doing in their productivity and identify opportunities for continuous improvement. The FieldPrint calculator really allows you to take a snapshot of a single year of field performance and then compare that year over year. And within our program, against your peers or national or state benchmarks. Being able to pull all of that together, we have a metrics engine that runs behind our FieldPrint calculator that really powers both our systems and a network of qualified data management partners. Our vision is that producers can really grab onto this information no matter what system they're using, whether they're entering this data through the FieldPrint calculator online for free, or they're part of a project, or they're using one of these tools up on the screen now to use for their decision support tools. So if they're already using Syngenta's LandDB or Nutrients Agrible or Land O'Lakes Truterra Insight Engine, they're able to jump into those systems and still get the same results no matter what platform they're in, pulling that same metrics. We use this to ensuring consistency across data collection and reporting, but it also helps us through our projects and claims verification. So really excited that we now have these 7 different platforms that we're connected to within that ecosystem. You'll see the statistics over here on the right. In 2019, this is a snapshot of our program and how many growers and acres we touched just within that one growing year. This only includes those that are within projects. So we'll talk about projects here in the next slide. It is just a smaller snapshot. It's not a general use, but we know that we've worked on 3.5 million acres just in 2019 alone with over 3,000 farmers. And that included over 75% of that data coming through these qualified data management partners. So a lot of this information, a lot of the data that comes through Field to Market is coming through tools that are already in farmers' hands. As I mentioned, we have a series of different continuous improvement projects. These continuous improvement projects aim to meet farmers and our members where they are on their sustainability journey. Each of the pathways have opportunities for conservation districts to provide technical assistance or leverage financial assistance along that supply chain funding. Specifically, the incubation, for me, is on my left. That's going to be that focus of being able to create those enabling conditions, the education component that districts have out there in the field that signal and help those producers understand these are the opportunities where I can improve what's happening in my field. I can improve yield, productivity, or I can address some of the concerns that I have, whether that's soil erosion or water quality and runoff. So being able to really educate and understand. The center pathway is insight. I see this role, this is where you can't manage what you don't measure. So with insight, this is bringing this tool to your producers, being able to let them learn through just use of the FieldPrint platform, However, I really see the most significant role for conservation districts in the innovation pathway. The innovation pathway calls on our supply chain not only to take those measurements and their supply chain goals, but actually combine those by incentivizing the change that they want to see on the ground and being able to provide tangible support to farmers to accelerate the adoption of these practices and or new technologies. And so having a conservation district come in and do what you do every day by providing that technical assistance, by providing that support for access to financial assistance or new opportunities and insight for those producers, this just adds another tool to your toolbox and potentially being able to leverage additional private funds alongside public funds, or just meeting with a new group of producers in your area. As I mentioned, we have over 70 active projects and many completed projects across the U.S. that really have worked for the past 5 to 10 years to document what's happening and really starting to demonstrate that sustainability action across the U.S. So these pins across the U.S., they are not they're not pinned exactly in the right geometries as far as where they are within each of those states. I'm still, like everyone, I'm working on that technical component of the map, but you can see we have a lot of projects that may be right there in your back door. The Texas projects are all unfortunately pinned to the center of the state, but the majority of those are going to be along the Gulf and within the High Plains area near Amarillo. You'll see that we have a lot of projects that are right there on the border states. We also have with Canada, we also have a sister Field to Market Canada that we work with some of those crops and that we support as well. So anytime that you run into these continuous improvement projects, you might start hearing Field to Market or the Field Print platform more likely is what you'll hear. So we want to make you aware that this is an opportunity for you to partner, and it's not someone that's going to come in and step on your territory, but someone that's here to partner beside you, that we're already arm in arm and ready to help producers in your area. We have found over the years that projects really have the ability to be transparent. So we have that system, that project directory that I just shared, really helps that to be transparent and helps us to communicate any progress that our members are making towards sustainability. We hope that it's a clearinghouse for interested stakeholders that want to understand what actions are being taken across the U.S. To improve the sustainability of commodity crops. Excuse me. And it also helps to shift that conversation so that we're moving from sustainability being in the niche conversations and not being in the minds of everyone to being in the norm, especially as consumers are demanding more information and understanding the dynamics that come into the food systems that they're eating and putting into their bodies or their children's bodies. The gaining recognition for sustainability leadership is really important for us, that we're able to point to those that and celebrate the efforts of those that collaborate alongside our farmers and the value chain to advance continuous improvement. So again, as I mentioned, you'll see anytime that I'm speaking, I try to pull in our projects. I try to make sure that we're always spotlighting those. That includes our assistance from the technical assistance side, but also includes us being able to be there to celebrate advisors and farmers of the year and our collaborations of the year. Being able to strengthen that trust in the food and ag system is the last component that we really see as huge as we move forward. Being able to communicate separately about efforts, we really want to help strengthen that conversation, that Field to Market membership is united behind this shared and strengthen trust and confidence. So today I wanted to present one really quick overview, kind of a teaser for this year's annual meeting for a breakout session. And then I'm going to turn the stage over to Leslie Fisher from the Benton County Soil and Water District. So Field to Market, as we said, we focused on supporting farmers to address their critical challenges, but instead we've enabled project framework that's built throughout the supply chain, meeting farmers and our members where they are in their journey. So there's one huge thing that I have noticed across the entire program is that innovation and getting to that innovative state doesn't happen in isolation. It really takes partnerships to move that forward. So projects offer opportunities to collaborate across the supply chain, forging partnerships to advance continuous improvement at the field level, also meeting farmers where you are on your journey. So the first example I wanted to share, again, this is a teaser. We do have a breakout session at the annual meeting that you can tune into alongside the leaders of the Headwaters Agricultural Sustainability Partnership in Minnesota. This project really focuses in on specifically, excuse me, the Sauk River watershed, which drains to the Mississippi. Their mission is to deploy solutions that benefit the environment, the economic viability of farmers, and the vitality of rural communities. But you'll notice that their key partner is the local conservation district, Stearns County Soil and Water District, led by Dennis Fulks and a really innovative and excited board that's willing to take on some of these new efforts, have aligned with the Nature Conservancy and several other partners that we'll walk through to put out conservation in the field that really brings together a different suite of opportunities for those local growers and farmers in their area. So again, this is just a teaser. You can find out all you want in our breakout session at the annual meeting. But really quickly, I'm going to turn it over here to Leslie Fisher from the Benton County Soil and Water District in Indiana to go through what was the Big Pine Creek Field Print Calculator project. So she's been the leading technical assistance advisor for the Field Print platform project that went in across her district region and her key watershed.
Thanks, Lexi. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I've been working with Lexi and with Field to Market for quite a few years. Going through this and prepping to talk with you guys today, it was actually fun to realize how far we have been with these projects. So my goal today is really to dive in. Lexi did a great job explaining Field to Market. It's such an incredible concept, but to see what it would actually look like for you to participate and be in a specific project. So I'm going to kind of go through down in the weeds of 3 different years of projects that we did and kind of what each one entailed. So just a backstory, as she said, I'm with the Soil and Water, but a lot of this was through our initiative with our Big Pine Creek Watershed project. And just for reference, so very rural area, we're talking about Northwest Indiana, kind of between Indianapolis and Chicago. And so small community, and we're really working with the crops of just corn and soybeans for the project. So we were approached by a conservation group called Conservation Technology Information Center, CTIC, and I always laugh about it. There's quite a few different levels of us with Soil and Water and how many years you've been on, you're brand new, or you've been there, for 20 plus years or however. But I actually attended a meeting prior to starting in which they approached and said, hey, do you want to do this huge project with Field to Market that's involved with national corporations all over the, whatever. And I hadn't even started the position yet. So it was actually my kickoff project. So for those of you that are concerned with confidence that you have the ability to do it, I had a zero agronomic background. So I actually, and part of this explained, it was actually a training tool it became on top of just the level of skill you really need to be able to run a project. So it's kind of funny way when we started. So in 2016 was our first project that we kicked off, and we basically kind of set up some objectives We were going to host a kickoff meeting to have our farmers kind of get together. We did a little bit of an education. Our watershed project was starting at the same time. We kind of inform them and make it a dual event. And so our objective was to be able to enter 15 different producers or farmers into the field calculator for the project, then have them meet with a CCA or a certified crop advisor to really review and help interpret the scores. We didn't want to run through it with them and then not really give them kind of an after fact after it was entered. And on top of that, for this project, Lexi really emphasized the partnership aspect of it. And so we're fortunate Purdue University is in our backyard, a land grant university. And so they actually had their social scientists as a part of it to kind of observe our interactions, which, as I already noted, this is like day 3 of work. So it was really interesting, but there was a lot of good insight that came from that report. And then as the project finished, one of the objectives was to kind of bring everybody back together and have a meeting, which, as Lexi had noted as well, you can do a score comparison basically off of what we had entered with producers into this calculator. So project partners, like I had mentioned, CTIC had approached us, and so we worked with our other conservation districts, to work on kind of getting that farmer subset of who would be interested in doing this. And then we had our own steering committee, and then beyond that, more regionally, Indiana pork producers were interested in working with Field to Market and a partner on it. Our State Department of Agriculture, the Corn Marketing Board. I know your commodity groups are a little bit different for your different states. Farm Bureau, and so it was just a variety of different partners that all had an interest, which is what's so exciting about working with these projects with Field to Market, because it opened up an opportunity to work with partners that on the district and local level we normally would not have. And so project goals were to inform producers of their environmental performance, get a baseline, and kind of see where there's improvement opportunities would exist. Find ways, to basically have recommendations. One of the options, of course, was that CCA that could help with this, as well as kind of moving forward agronomically on different options once they got this baseline score. And really use the tool to help influence the projects that we were currently doing by kicking off this watershed project at the same time. The timing really worked out well. And also to encourage these producers to, do continuous improvement and find different ways to move forward that conservation needle that they were doing. And so a summary from it, we went through, we got these 15 producers, and then I'm a little bit of a over the topper, so I was convinced we actually needed to have more. So we threw it in and got it up to 19 different farmers that we worked with directly. And we held 18. One of our farmers actually was not interested in doing the CCA and the social science observation, which was just fine. So we did 18 of those meetings. And then at the end, we got together, and I had mentioned, that aggregated data meeting was where we took the scores of what we had entered with the farmers for an individual one. And then we gave them, their own scores personally, but then we put it up on the screen where everyone, knew that they were number 1, and so they could see their score up there, but it wasn't identifiable up there. So it was kind of neat. Year 1 was really quiet. People, looked at their scores and could see what the baseline was for the watershed and the project of the 19 people entered in. And then they could see the state average for where would they fit with those different metrics that Lexi had mentioned, along with the national average. So it was kind of just a teaser, and at that point, I didn't know that we were going to be doing more projects. And so, we just kind of ended it there. But then excitingly enough, we moved on to year 2. Oh, never mind. I want to explain the challenges first. So finding the participants for this was very interesting, especially since I had not really built a base of farmers. So I worked with, of course, those other soil and water districts. And I had mentioned I was from a rural community. So, I kind of begged and borrowed from people and got a few different people. Kind of that first subset was a lot of people that had already had a relationship with the district, or, that I had some kind of interaction with professionally in the area as well. The time commitment was not necessarily easy. I mean, you really had to block out the certain times with the farmers, because we found it most resourceful in our project to have the farmer come in, sit directly with us, and enter it together. You can do these projects in different capacities and everyone sets them up differently, but we found that to be, and I would still stick with that personally, the most effective method for completing the project and getting the most out of it. Comfort level, I had one person, when I was asking them, maybe give me an estimate of your total acreage, which, as we all know, in a soil and water conservation district, we have access to, but, just blatantly asking that, one of them responded with, that's kind of like asking how much money I have in my bank account, right? So it's like, okay, Duly noted. I'll be a little softer on that question next time, or maybe just look it up with your permission. So there are a few challenges just in that kind of that much personal, interaction of weeding through how to get through that. And meeting attendance, a kickoff meeting, not always necessary. It worked for what we were doing at the moment for that one, but quite a few. So outcomes of that, we really established some really good relationships to run with from all of those personal interactions. I know I had mentioned, me and the farmers, really were learning just sustainable practices, and different things would fall within those metrics and what makes that change, some options out there that they could change. And I really appreciated and enjoyed that the farmers told me they had never experienced evaluating their farm in that kind of capacity, which I found to be extremely insightful. I've shared that out quite a few times with Lexi and I've got talked before, because you don't think about them. I mean, there's different type of metrics they're doing, but a lot of times you're doing those, like what Lexi mentioned, the API, True Terry, you're doing that with like your seed guy or other different avenues, and you're not thinking about it in a conservation mind frame, not necessarily the place they would normally go. So, and then of course it really was a training tool if you're wanting to learn more about agronomic practices, understanding really what is an appropriate amount of nitrogen to be applying for corn, for that year. It was pretty interesting that I don't think, of course, that was ever an initial, goal of the calculator, but it really did work at that. So for 2017, for our second year, we hosted a kickoff meeting again, and we decided to focus more, instead of trying to get so many producers, slow down and get less producers, but work with them through a little bit more of a thorough process. Get kind of their beginning, what they're doing, to the end game. So as we're aware, working in the NRCS world again, of course, more of a conservation plan style, but really in-depth, kind of our own conservation plan through the calculator. So, and then we wanted to hold a meeting again at the end to do that comparison of scores. We're really curious to see how the farmers would react to that, especially with some of them being repeat farmers. And we had some that switched out a little bit, but we had a lot of repeat. And so they could kind of see if things they had done in the past year had changed. And excitingly enough, because we timed it with our watershed project and new cost share initiatives, a lot of them had taken advantage of different opportunities they had. So a lot of them had just recently implemented new conservation practices. So goals, we wanted to build on those existing relationships and focus on that conservation plan and really connect them with even more cost share. It just magically timed out that we had so many more cost share opportunities. So it worked out that we had these one-on-one set aside appointments. And then to continue to build, our own goals of that watershed project, expanding it. So we had that informal kickoff meeting, which we decided really wasn't necessary since a lot of them were repeat, but lessons learned for the future. And we entered data for 12 producers and worked through them with those individualized conservation plans, which I admit I still reference back to as I'm working through with cost share participants that come in and out of the office for those individual specific farmers. And then we hosted that aggregated data where we took all of theirs, where they could look at it, not know who was on the screen, but have their own personal file of what it was, tailored their economics and their metrics and how they scored for each of those areas. And so I love this little aha slide. I couldn't find anything cheesier, but it probably describes me, this little cheesy, graphic here. But it was like that complete aha moment. So what happened with year two was, these farmers know each other, it's a rural community, but it's their second year going into the project together. They've all experienced the same, amount of time frame spent working with me. And all of a sudden, they were more comfortable. They sat there. And there was like this lull when we put up the screen and all the data, and all of a sudden one of the farmers said, all right, I've got to say it. So who is this guy? Because this, we made this presentation tied to both their conservation metrics, tied in with just kind of the standard base rate of economics applied to that. So you're seeing, how they've done for land use and irrigation water use tied in with the economics behind their little bar graphs for each thing we put up. It's all right, somebody is like winning in the conservation practices in every single one of these metrics, and they're also spending the least amount of money. And so somebody, just outright said it, right? I'm assuming that they were somebody whose score was not as favorable. And then the next thing that that farmer, of course, chimed in and said, well, that's me. And so they're sitting there, and this is that magic moment that we all hope for when we're having educational events. And they chatted, and we just let it, continue on, where they explained, okay, this is what I'm doing. and this is why I'm doing it. And obviously it's paying off. And so that was an exciting, thing that we never would have happened without using this tool and having a way to put those scores up there and then looking at their rates for the project amongst themselves. Then of course, base compared to state and national average, which almost all of our guys were actually, our farmers were scoring better than that, which was exciting as well. So our last year, we actually worked directly with Field to Market, which was just enjoyable, to enroll producers, collecting data for ones who had data in 2016 or 15, 16, and 17. So all the years of the farm data they had put in, the crop years they had in there, to really kind of help to validate some of the metric update, which Field to Market was doing, which was helpful from Field to Market. But the thing about it is, Lexi had shared that slide showing everyone who is members. And I know not everyone is involved in a rural community setting, but a lot of you are still working with different farmers. And there's not really in farmer world a lot of things where you get to work up the pipe and have recognition. And it's not a corporate chain or any kind of position to work up. And so the farmers having this connection to these bigger things and being a part of a project that has that much capacity to it, they really enjoyed it, which was kind of, not something I expected to see the extent. And so, some of them are now entering the calculator themselves. Some of them have asked if we have a plan to new projects. Do they want to continue it? They really like it. And so with this pilot, it was really nice because they appreciated that Field to Market traveled in and wanted to get their opinion. It's just more of a recognition thing. So, but with this one, we had that goal of assessing the feasibility of a metric update. So project benefits. There was so much that came out of it, which was entertaining, that I know Lexi and I in Field to Market, we did not expect to have. I mean, we're all in these projects, but there were things that came out of it that we didn't even realize. So definitely that building of the relationships with your farmers or producers that you're working with was huge. Definitely the goal, I would say, and the number one reason why I would encourage you all to look into this. But connecting the district with other cost share and resources, through these projects and our partners all involved, there were some financial incentives for a district. And I'm sure you guys are in a similar place that you always have a place that funds can be used when you're doing district work. So we were able to use those funds to actually hold and continue employees and expand our staffing, actually. Bringing that awareness to using those sustainable metrics for a farmer just to even be able to think about it in that kind of capacity. Building the knowledge of conservation practice options and cost share that we could assist, or even technical assistance we could help with them. Farmer recognition. This photo here is actually of Steve Walpe with a couple of Field to Market members. And so every year they have where, if you're doing Field to Market projects, you can recommend a farmer spotlight or a farmer of the year. And so we've nominated 3 who all have won. And so this is a picture of my farmer, Steve Walpe, who got to fly down to North Carolina and get recognized for his continuous improvement that he was doing and working with Field to Market. I sent another farmer, Mike Connor, up to Madison, Wisconsin. And after that award and what Field to Market put out about him, actually No-Till magazine did a big spread on him. And it was so rewarding to have him come in here and bring me the magazine and show him, what we've been involved with. And now that helped to show, what he's been spending 40+ years of his own, energy and time doing, and how successful that was. And then we also were able to nominate our farmer Rick Clark that we work with as well through different field day things with our watershed project for Farmer of the Year as well. So it's been really fun to be able to recognize folks on such a larger platform that you would not normally have access to. So, and then of course the staff training, those benefits, and just the connection to larger resources, the different entities that are involved with Field to Market and members, and their conference and an NACD conference, and how everyone comes together. It's really been a joy to be involved so deeply with them in these projects. So feel free to ask questions. I know Meg's going to finish out with some stuff, but I just want to end it, my portion here with really encouraging you to look into this. I know we all have a lot on our plate, and you end up being involved in so many different things, or even if you're new, it's a little intimidating, but I'm telling you that if I could do this and I'm not necessarily tech savvy, it's really an incredible option and really an opportunity to be involved in these kinds of projects.
Thanks, Leslie. I wanted to just circle back with some next steps that you could consider. One thing that Field to Market does have for our members is our partnership exchange. Sunny and Meg have worked to put up a listing for NACD that highlights the technical assistance that conservation districts can bring to a lot of our projects. And being able to highlight that, it's really critical for us to be able to say, yeah, there's already this expertise here, there's the capacity here, and there's a willingness to partner. So being able to signal those things within the partnership exchange has been really critical. However, if you are a specific district that wants to put your hand up and say, hey, this is something that we are willing and ready to do, there is an opportunity where I can help you get a listing there on the partnership exchange, or help you identify through our project directory and help you make those direct connections to projects that are already in your backyard that you want to be connected with. So please feel free. I have my contact information up here on the screen. If you have questions, of course, we're all remote right now, so email may be the best way to get a hold of me, but just reach out and let me know that, hey, we want to talk, we want to chat more about this. There's opportunities across the entire nation. We do have projects. The only states we don't have our state and national our state benchmarks for are Hawaii and Alaska and those U.S. territories, just because we don't have that USDA data for the commodity crops that are in our program. However, there's still an opportunity that you can set up a project there. Just because we don't have those benchmarks there doesn't mean that they're not, that the tool's not available for you. So I'm going to hand it over to Meg and Sunny for any questions that anyone has.
Well, thank you very much, Lexi and Leslie. I really appreciate your time. As Lexi just said, if you have any questions, you can use the chat box, either send it to everyone or find Sunny's name on the list. If you do send it directly to me, I can then focus and get it where it needs to go. You can also text on your cell phone, and that goes directly to Sunny. I want to stress that Field to Market is a program that you have access to through NACD's membership. So you are considered a member of Field to Market. In order to get access, as Lexi said, you will need to talk to her. She will get you the members access. If you go to their website without members access, you don't get to see the full picture. For you in your district, Field to Market could be something you would be interested in, even aside from having a TA grant. It may just be something that you can see some value in getting involved. Leslie has a TA grant, but they just got it this year. She's been involved in it for a number of years, as you saw, prior to adding in a TA grant. For anyone with a grant, the reason we wanted to give you this chance to learn about Field to Market is it may be possible for you to be able to use some of that support that Leslie mentioned to help with your TA grant and be able to expand it even more, to be able to go with it. So with that, Sunny, do we have any questions that people want answered?
Yeah, absolutely. And God bless technology. It sounds like there's some glitches about sending in questions. So if you can get it to me, great. If you can get it to everyone, great. If you can get it to you can text it, great. But we might just have to figure out the best avenues here. Let's see, we'll start off with the first one that came in, and it was right about when Lexi was still speaking. Are there any continuous improvement projects in New England?
We do not have any active continuous improvement projects in New England, but we do have one that is standing up this year, specifically in dairy feed in Vermont. So we anticipate that that will grow, especially now that we have those seed crops in the system and they've been tested. We had 3 pilots from the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy and also pilots of this program in Wisconsin focused on dairy. We've seen that alignment between the two really pushing for us to have more projects there in New England.
Okay. And if you posed a question and if you need to ask a follow-up question, feel free to put that in the chat box. This one came in when Leslie was speaking. Were the conservation plans similar to the ones that NRCS develops?
Initially, we had debated kind of doing theirs and putting them in Toolkit or Conservation Desktop, whichever system your state is using with NRCS right now. But no, we developed our own. So we basically took everything that they wanted to do and organized it kind of by year and broke down just our own format. We found to be much simpler and save time than doing NRCSs.
Great. Okay. This is a two-part. What was the main motivation for farmers to look into their farms from the sustainability point of view for the first time? What brought them in?
Initially, contacts we already had made. You know, I'm very blatant and I just blunt when I'm working with my farmers. And I said, hey, I don't know if you'll enjoy this or not, but I appreciate if you will try it. I think you can get a lot out of it. I'd be willing, you know, to take all of my time. I'll work around whatever you've got and make it work. And so once you actually got them hooked doing it, then they had an interest in it going forward. We actually thought that we would need a financial incentive. And so we did like a $50 payment for them sitting down with me. And their time frame to sit down with me and go through the calculator, I directly reflect the age actually. So if they were like 40 or younger, it was like 30 to 45 minutes. But if they were like 60 plus, it tended to be more like an hour to 2 hours. It just seemed to work like that. I know that's different for every person. But what happened was after we paid them the $50 checks, most of them didn't cash them. So apparently that was not an incentive at all.
Huh, interesting.
What did you say the second part? I'm sorry, Suni, could you repeat? Was there a secondary question?
What brought them in?
Okay, yeah. So begging and borrowing, calling, just direct calling and talking to them and asking them if they were willing to do it initially.
Okay.
Sunny, I'd love to jump in on that. Just from other projects with they've been able to relay to me, it really takes that trust, that trusted relationship. So they know Leslie, they know the conservation district, and there's already that trust built in there. So we have found that it takes working with the opportunities to work with ag retailers to, with those trusted relationships, whether they're driving producers to come talk to that conservation district or the other way around. But it also helps any of our supply chain projects really touch the growers, because our supply chain and the majority of our members don't have those personal relationships that conservation districts do directly with producers.
Okay, great. And I think an additional question, how are farmers compensated for participation in the program?
So that varies across all of our projects. You have some, as Leslie mentioned, they had an incentive initially to come in and enter their data. Some have access to financial assistance. Some get access to technology. So a lot of our qualified data management partners, those are paid for technologies that then the producers have access to without having to pay for that out of their own pocket. And then the majority of our projects have some type of incentive that ties to the change that they want to see at the end of the day. So whether that's, and I will say a lot of times that's matching private funds with public funds to get the producers the most bang for their buck.
Great. Okay, an additional one with the TA grants, it is my understanding that the deliverables have to be closely tied to assistance NRCS with their contracts / workload. How did this project deliverables tie into the NRCS contracts workload?
So although at the time, you know, we did not have our TA grant during this, I can definitely answer that relating and understanding TA grants now that we have one as well. But basically that connection of doing technical assistance, working through them, on top of if you're doing, you know, the cost share within our CS and have options as well. So you're working with the farmer, getting a plan, you know, and then they often end up going into EQIP or CSP, you know, eventually down there. So you can tie it basically through your program work or even through technical assistance if that's how you've written your NACD grant. Meg, did I say that okay? I don't want to mess up the specifics.
You did. Lexi, do you have anything to add to?
The only thing that I was going to say is Field to Market also has an NRCS grant where we're looking at interoperability between our system and the NRCS planning system with CART. And so we are actually working on streamlining that process alongside. NACD is actually one of our partners on that grant, and will be helping us pilot that with interested conservation districts across the U.S. Here, actually, in the near future, we are working on finalizing those agreements and figuring out where we want to go to ground. So that is another opportunity that would still allow you to connect to those TA grants that offer that direct connection and streamlining with NRCS contracting.
Thanks, Leslie. I want to add that it's my understanding the field print calculator is an NRCS project. So being involved in this really is being involved with NRCS and their work.
Yep, we do have direct grants and funding. NRCS, alongside Jeremy, the state conservationist for Oklahoma. Gary O'Neill sits on our board of directors as well as helping us lead the charge from our affiliate sector's perspective from NRCS. And they also sit on many of our committees across the Field to Market framework.
Thank you. Jeremy, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think Lexi covered it. There's certainly a lot of opportunity for collaboration amongst the various organizations and agencies, and that really is where a lot of the important work occurs. Is as we're looking at tools and resources, what is the interoperability? How do things that have been developed complement one another, and how do we appropriately leverage them together to achieve what we're trying to accomplish? So yeah, it's a very good question, and a lot of work, as Lexi mentioned, that's underway.
Thank you, Jeremy. Sunny, any more questions?
Yeah, we got a couple more. How might this program apply to smaller vegetable or specialty crop farmers?
So again, Field to Market focuses in on commodity crops only. However, we do have a sister organization called the Stewardship Index for Specialty Crops. That is based out of California. Really, they're focused across the U.S. Across citrus crops, tomatoes, etc. On the specialty crop side. So if you do have an interest with connecting to them, I'm happy to connect you with Allie Wells, their president.
Okay, on that note, we do have one more question, and then Lexi, I'm gonna stick in a couple of different links into the chat box. One of them is a direct link to the calculator, and the other is to the member website. Do you want to talk a little bit about those? And then I've actually found the Sustainability Index website. I'll stick that in there as well, and then we'll follow up with the additional question that is in the queue.
Absolutely. So the first link that Sunny dropped in there with calculator.fieldtomarket.org is the FieldPrint platform. This is that free online calculator. There's a guest login where you can actually jump into accounts that already have data that are entered there, where you can see the types of questions that are asked. You can compare that to what you already know about producers and try and tweak and move things around and see how those results change within both the spidergram of our results. So it's a quick visual view of the results and metrics, but more importantly, if you drop down below that, you'll see the indicator by indicator tables where you can compare against those state and national benchmarks. If there was a project connected, you would see those against your peers as well at that producer level. So you could see what the FieldPrint platform really gives a producer at the end of the day. If you have more questions and you say, hey, this is really informative, I want to dig deeper, we do have a suite of resources that explain what do each of these metrics mean. So we have a series of fact sheets that go along that and all of that lives on both our public website, just fieldtomarket.org, but also within the support side of the field print calculator. So if you go down that menu on the left within the calculator, hit support, you'll find links to all of those documents as well. The second that link there, that's members / projects, is the field to market project directory. This is that all comprehensive list of our active and many of our legacy projects that have decided to move forward with us. We had a big transition last year in the technology and updated this project directory to be more transparent, to meet our strategic goal of being that clearinghouse for action. So field to market project directory is relatively new. You'll see though that this includes summaries of our projects, as well as as you go into each of those individual projects, you can see their progress and how they're getting there. You can see the organizations that are involved, but you can also see where they're focusing in on. We do not have it down to a county level at this point. We were working to get the map and getting all the other things squared away first, and then we'll get that county and or watershed information dropped in there from each of those projects as well. So you may be able to kind of tighten in and figure out exactly where these projects are working. And then again, the stewardship index for specialty crops, stewardshipindex.org will take you there. You can get a lot of information right there. They do not have an online tool. I think they're in development still of that tool. They use an Excel spreadsheet, but it's very similar. It uses almost identical metrics as field to market, but focused in on that specialty crop seeds.
Thank you, Lexi. I do want to stress for anyone that to get that membership access, you will need to reach out to Lexi so she can get you set up. And so she's prepared to do that. You just need to let her know that you want the access.
And the project directory is public. So even though it says members here, it is still a public, this is still, part of that is still public. You just can't get to the points of contact without having that login. So I'm always happy to help with that.
Thank you. Sunny, anything else?
Yep, we do have one more question. I'm trying to I'm trying to figure out the value proposition to a dairy farmer because it's the only type of producer I work with who would qualify. What do they get out of the participation?
So the value proposition is always a question of what's in it at the end of the day. That's understanding what's the return on investment for conservation practices going in on the ground. You can actually see a direct measurement. A lot of our projects add in that economic component, especially around dairy, to say this is the value that you're getting out of rotation or your manure management systems, etc. So it allows you to really dig down into the practices that are happening in the field and understand where am I seeing gains, but also you can see what are those costs and benefits. How do they weigh out as you're making decisions? So we have a lot of producers that use it as a decision support tool. They'll use it to run scenarios to understand, hey, if I could get that cover crop in here, I know that it's going to push my planting date. How is that going to affect? They can use that those scenarios within the FieldPrint platform to really make some critical decisions throughout the crop year. 3, and it's attaching it to those connections of those partners. So leveraging the supply chain that wants to already be working with the producers and wants to get their meet their goals. They want to help producers to get those. They set scope 3 emissions are a focus on greenhouse gas emissions all the way down at the farmstead. So it's not something that they can control within the supply chain. It's not their manufacturing or their hauling and transportation, but it's what the raw materials that come into their system are. And so being able to say, this is what we're doing to help producers. This is what we're doing alongside conservation districts or alongside and we're blending this together into a really amazing program for producers. They like that storytelling side, but it also helps them to understand. They get to know the producers. I have been really lucky over the years to have a lot of our brands out there in the field. So Leslie, actually last year, I believe, 2019, we had a field day out in Leslie's neighborhood with a huge company, Tate and Lyle. They brought in they're an aggregator, but they in their CEO, they brought in all of their downstream customers. And we actually sat on the farm, out in the backyard, behind the bins, just really having a long conversation around sustainability. So just those conversations, those connections are what I see as value. And Leslie, if having that one-on-one connection with producers, I think you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, it's I had mentioned that recognition between the farmers and like a higher level that they're not normally connected with, and I agree that meal that Lexi is referring to, where you have this CEO sitting at the same outdoor little kind of farm to table style snazzy event that's been catered by the most expensive company. I mean, it was an incredible cool thing, and you're just general farmers that you're working with, are getting to connect with that. And I think that appreciation and that recognition that they feel from that is really a driver for them to continue those incredible conservation adoption practices that they're interested in.
Right.
Thank you, ladies. Sunny, anything else?
Yeah. How are you defining a commercial producer?
So we don't have a definition of commercial producer. We are open to any commodity crops that are being produced at any scale. Again, technology neutral, and we are very specifically science-based and technology neutral and outcomes focused. So we want to help producers, no matter at what scale that they're working on, to really achieve their sustainability goals.
Great. Anything else?
Would it be worthwhile? I know we did mention at the front end that Lexi is going to be presenting at the annual meeting in her breakout session. I've got the details for that. I'll stick that in the chat as well. Lexi, do you want to cover a little bit of that as a primer to encourage people to log in for that one as well?
Sure. So very similar to that brief overview I gave earlier, I'll give a very short overview of Field to Market again as that, but the majority of that time is really a conversation with that Headwaters Agricultural Sustainability Project in Minnesota. That project has grown legs. It started as a gift to the Nature Conservancy with a lot of strings attached that it has to go to producers. It has to be something that is scalable across the U.S. But it was a very generous gift that helped them stand up a program that has really taken hold across that watershed. If you go into Minnesota and you look at those key watersheds, the Sauk River watershed is a really key important watershed that has over 3,000 growers there in that watershed. And those producers have had a long-standing relationship with Stearns County Conservation District. So we have Dennis Folks, who's going to be helping me lead that conversation, as well as Leigh Fixon from the Nature Conservancy and Drew Kessler from Houston Engineering. And it's been a really great experience to watch that group come together. I shared just a quick overview of some of the members of that organization. However, there's a lot of organizations that weren't even on that screen. They're connecting both to studies, deep dives with those producers that are entering their data and to understanding the economics. They're also working with producers to understand what happens if I throw a lot of money at a small group of producers, how does that change the adoption rate? So if they have access to a lot more private funds within a given location, but they also have this greater focus at making sure that those producers have access to the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program to get that certainty within Minnesota on water quality. And also we go into a little bit of information on how everybody plays a different role, specifically drilling into that role that conservation districts play across those programs, because it does give you kind of a huge vantage point, very similar to how Leslie presented today, of how a district can actually play a role no matter what the project is focused in on.
Thank you, Lexi. And Sunny, I was going to make a plug for it, but I also want to expand it. Another of our breakout sessions at annual meeting is Leslie. With her is a colleague from American Farmland Trust, talking about innovative outreach, how to make contacts in your community. Leslie, you want to give us a 2-3 minute plug?
Sure, I'd love to. So yeah, our session really surrounds farmer engagement. A lot of the questions you guys asked too on how do you really get the farmers to come into the office and participate. And so we really focus in on the type of partnerships to include. I did a small snippet on Field to Market because I knew that we'd be expanding here, and I thought a good chunk of you guys might be watching both, along with kind of a subset of way to really break down your farmers and their interest in different ways and which things they would be more interested in. Really diving in, even if you have different cost share types of options, which kind of farmers really tend to take the bait more for which type of program you're doing. And so we've been fortunate with our watershed to have some of those options. Not everyone does, but it really goes into that, along with that rural piece and outlook of, what kind of coffee shops do you need to look at to find the farmers, to start building those relationships and building that trust on the ground level, make the projects that you're involved in succeed, and really, gain that network of farmers that you need to move the conservation along in your area the way it needs to be done. So, and then on top of that, because of course, it's not necessarily a normal world lately, all of my kind of first half of the presentation focuses around that face-to-face interaction. And so we also coupled it with Ashley Brooker from American Farmland Trust, and how to take all of that and scale it to a virtual level, to still make it, rewarding, and to really get the farmers and more of a rural community involved as well. And so if you're not rural or ag focused, there's still value to it in working with your constituents. But it's a nice piece of really showing how to do it both ways and really incorporate the virtual side as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. For anyone who isn't signed up for NACD's annual meeting, the registration is only $50. And it gives you access to all of the agenda and the presentations, and a chance to be able to ask questions of the speakers and find out more information about what they are doing. Ladies, thank you so much for being here today. I can absolutely back up that Lexi is a font of information. She has barely scratched the surface. So if Field to Market sounds like something your colleagues are interested in, that includes other districts, people that you have interactions with, please send them to Lexi, and she'd be happy to help them get into the system and understand how it might be practical within your area, who you might have available for partners. Thank you, Sunny, of course, for kind of doing the tech background. Just want to remind everyone to watch your email tomorrow morning. I'll be sending out the link for applying for the TA 2021 funding if you're interested in priority request. Talk to your region reps or myself if you have any questions in terms of accessing the application, or when it comes down to the details of your funding requests. So thank you all for making time to join us. I will send out an email once we get the recording hosted so that you'll have a chance to be able to watch it again if you missed something. Thank you.